Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, a show for people who are obsessed with all things marketing. I'm your host, Veronica, Romney, certified master marketer, international keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, and the author of a new book called Identity Marketing. Each week, I interview rainmakers from brands big and small to pull back the curtain on what's actually working in marketing today. We dig into real life wins and losses and their very real consequences, and get into spicy discussions of marketing controversies and opposing philosophies. This is the real marketing thought leadership you've been looking for in your ears on demand. This is the Rainmaker Podcast. Welcome back to the Rainmaker Podcast. I'm really excited for you to get to hear from Amanda Robinson, who, yes, she has her own Facebook ads agency and service and business, but she also represents Meta on stages. They send her out quite often to converse and share what it is to run Meta ads. And so I got a chance to have her on our podcast to talk about what it looks like to leverage Meta ads in a way that it's not the dominant source of your traffic and not all of your eggs are in one basket, but how to use Meta ads to highlight, or in her words, amplify the rest of your marketing to really extend the benefit of what you're already doing so well versus using it to save or rescue a company. That's what we want to avoid at all costs with any source of traffic. And I thought she did a really phenomenal job explaining the differences and shifting the paradigm, shifting the conversation that I hadn't heard before. Plus her analogies are so spot on. Wait until you hear her little algorithm appetizer segment. Ugh, it was one of my favorites. So without further ado, please welcome my guest, Amanda. Amanda, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you. And I before we officially turned on the button, go record, I kind of pitched you an idea for this because I know a lot of brands, big and small, have had, I don't want to use the word abusive, but they've had this just kind of relationship of tension with paid advertising. This is what you do. This is your specialty. And so I wanted to approach this in a little bit of a different way. I wanted to have a conversation with an expert who was going to help us leverage paid media, not as our primary traffic source, but as a complement to all of the other great marketing and brand awareness campaigns that we run. Like, how can I leverage this platform not as like my single source of all things business, but to complement everything that I'm doing so that it's more harmonious of a relationship with this medium, this practice, than I think what it is for a lot of people. It's like do or die. And obviously we are also recording this right on the backside of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, 2024, which has some feels. So personally, I was pitch slapped like crazy for everything on social media ads, right? So, and you were a good sport about this, like, let's do this. So let's dive right in. What is your State of the Union address on just paid ads right at this moment? Like, what's your hot take on just the space?
The space is changing rapidly. So I focus mainly on Meta ads, Facebook and Instagram, and we know that space changes pretty much daily. But I like how you were kind of describing it earlier, where it's a bit of a tumultuous relationship that business owners have or marketers have when it comes to their paid ads. And I love how you said pitch slapped. Essentially, I see a lot of businesses approach their advertising strategy going out with sales ablazing. They just need to make sales, so they go out with ads to a cold audience of people who don't know them yet, and they serve them content to try and execute on a sale. And then at the end of the day, the marketers and business owners are tearing their hair out in frustration saying, why can't I make this work for me? Well, usually people are trying to go 0 to 100 too fast. And I love how you frame this, where your advertising strategy doesn't have to be the piece that gets people over the finish line into that sale. Your advertising is one tool in your marketing tackle box. And that's the way that I like to view this, is that you have lots of tools at your disposal, whether that be your internal marketing, your word of mouth, your email list, your ads, your organic, everything. All of these components do work as a bit of an ecosystem, and they have to work together harmoniously. So I find when people put too much weight on their ads to do that heavy lifting for them, it can sometimes result in failure. And sometimes that's because ads are going to do one job very well. They're going to amplify. So that means they're going to amplify either what's working. If you have something that's working and it's making you sales and you're just pouring more money on it and amplifying that, and your systems are all working harmoniously, then yes, you're going to be fine. If you're amplifying a piece of your marketing puzzle that isn't working well for you, then you're going to find the holes in it real quick, and it's going to be expensive and frustrating. And that's usually when I start working with business owners or marketers. Some of my first questions before we even get into the ad account are understanding, how are you currently executing on sales right now? Where are you actually making the money? What does that person and persona look like? And then how does your system work? As in, are they coming through a website? Are they coming through a sale that's happening digitally? Are they having a sale that's happening in person? What is that, all of this? Right. What do all of your puzzle pieces look like? And then how can we take that and remap that in a way that is a digital touch point? And for some people, you can't execute on all of those touch points with one single ad to say, buy this today. You can't. So instead, using your advertising in different ways. So not trying to get that click. And then this is where I'm going to get a little geeky on you, is that when it comes to keeping people on the platform versus sending them off the platform, on the platform is going to be a lot less expensive. So we have first party data versus third party data. So imagine that first party, we're all at a party here together. Say we're in your backyard having a barbecue at your party, right? We're keeping everybody at the party. We're engaging with each other on the spot, and it's a lot more fun. But then if you have somebody that came in and they're saying, hey, I have another party a block over, why don't you come over and hang out with me? It's going to be more expensive to lure that person off of that platform or off of that party they're already on to a third party event. So to have that occur, it costs a little bit more money. So us as marketers, we want to get people onto our websites. We want them to click onto our landing pages. We want them to click into our stores and our shops where we can actually make those sales occur. But sometimes we need to spend more time at the party, networking, getting to know people, getting to understand their needs, and showing up and being useful, helpful, educational, and entertaining for them. So that's where the real power of your advertising can come in. A huge strength you can have is being present on the spot, first party, lower cost, and show up, be present, and provide value to people. And use your meta ads, your Facebook, your Instagram ads, and sometimes your other forms of advertising. Use those as your first touch point, and use those as the vehicle to educate your consumers, and then let the rest of your marketing do the heavy lifting. That's the trend that I'm finding is making most success for businesses who are still establishing their brand or their offering.
Is this like, I mean, and I know that in the marketing world, there's like so much terminology and acronyms and like it's a whole glossary, but like top of funnel ads, right? So it's, and that's really interesting. I really love analogies so deeply. Like I loved that party and that was so good. Like, let's just stay at the party. They don't really want you to leave the party. And so what does that mean? Does that mean like I'm running an ad to somebody who doesn't already follow me and the only call to action is to follow me? Like they're just staying on Instagram? Like what does that mean as far as engaging with them further on the existing platform versus leading them off to a web page, web asset I own?
So it's definitely easier to sell to people who know, like, and trust you, obviously.
Sure.
And when it comes to having touch points with people, imagine back in the day, those radio ads that you'd listen to on the drive to work and the drive home, you would be hammered with the exact same radio ad over and over and over and over. And after the 97th time of hearing that radio ad for a lawnmower, you're actually driving past the hardware store and you're like, you know what? I actually do need a lawnmower. Why don't it's the last day of sale? Might as well pop in and buy that thing. Well, sometimes it takes that repetition in order for it to kind of sink in, or for you to connect, or for you to recognize that you have a need. So if you as an advertiser or a business are present continually and top of mind for when that person finally does realize their need and you are the right solution, you're already there, top of mind. You're their first pick. That's who they're going to go with. Versus if, yes, you have the solution that person needs, but you showed up on scene randomly once and then you bounce and you're not around again. So you like all the analogies. I'll give you my algorithm appetizers analogy. So when it comes to getting back out in front of people over and over again, we can either pay money to get back in front of them again and again and again. That's what we call retargeting. So it does cost money. Or we can get in front of people that are our potential correct audience, and we can really connect with them deeply. And then they will engage with our content. And those engagements are likes, clicks, comments, shares, and reactions. So those interactions prime them to be able to be served our content organically. So if they interact with us continually, they're going to continually get our content organically, which is wonderful. And if they're not interested in what we have to offer and we are serving them ads and they're not interacting with us, but we keep hammering them with ads, we're getting in front of them, but we're having to do it in a paid format. So over time, the more times you show up in front of someone's feed and you show up and you're helpful or providing a positive experience and showing up and making their day better versus what you called it before, getting pitch slapped with another sales ad. The more you can show up and have something that's in it for them versus just in it for you, then the better it is and the more likely your content is to be shown. So that's where we get to the algorithm appetizers. So the algorithm is driven, your reach is driven on engagement. So the number of people that your content is able to reach, it's all riding on how engaging is that content. So I like to relate that to going back to our party in your backyard, where we have servers circulating around with a tray of appetizers. And one of those trays happens to be a giant tray of spinach. And the server gets through the first round of people and no one's really eating the spinach. So imagine that being content that people don't really want. They're not really engaging with it. It's not very appetizing. And so they're not consuming that content. So after one round around the party, the server takes that plate, throws it back in the kitchen, and doesn't make more. But then later on, the cupcakes come out. And the server can't even make it through the first row of people. And the cupcakes are already gone. They've gone back to the kitchen, loaded up on more cupcakes. The kitchen is making more and more and more. That's like your content being ultra appetizing, people consuming it by engaging with it, and the algorithm producing more and more and more and continuing to circulate to a wider sphere of people. Whether they like you or whether they don't, people down the street are hearing that there's a party with free cupcakes and they're just coming in, walking in off the street. You're meeting more and more and you're amplifying. But the algorithm is doing the heavy lifting, not your ad dollars. So if you're trying to push a plate of spinach, it's going to cost you a lot of money because people just don't want it. You're putting spinach in their hand. They're just being polite and being, gee, thanks. Okay, on to the next. But if you're offering cupcakes, people are coming to you. They want more. So the next time that you say, hey, I've got a party and we've got cupcakes again, you're going to have a lineup of people ready and looking for it. So keeping that analogy in mind when it comes to the algorithm, how it works, when it comes to using your content to engage people versus to sell to people, and then letting the rest of your marketing take over from there is, for some people, a much better approach to making these platforms work for you.
It's interesting because I think some people don't even know which pieces of their world, their content is spinach and which are cupcake. I think we have a little bit of a bias. We're like, well, I know how long it took me to make that piece of content, so surely that shit better be a cupcake. And so would you recommend then we let our content organically perform first before then putting paid behind? Because I love what you said about how ads really just amplify. So let's say I had a reel that just like popped off. You're like, yeah. Then what? What do I do with that? How do I further amplify something that I saw worked without paid?
I love how you said that. When it comes to putting marketing dollars behind something, you definitely want to put marketing dollars behind something that is proven, is giving you positive signals that it's appetizing. Excuse me. So if you have something that's working, go ahead, and that's the time to put more momentum on it, put some ad dollars on that and push that out further. And if you don't have the luxury of having organic content to be able to test here and there, and you need to do this through the format of paid ads, then a high volume of creative, so a high volume of different variety of ads is going to be your best friend. So putting out an advertising campaign, usually when an advertiser or a business thinks of, okay, I'm going to put out an ad, that one single ad is not just one picture. That one ad, it's an ad campaign. You've got your ad set, but inside of it, you can have multiple different images running simultaneously at the same time. And from those, you can have some variety and then allow the system to figure out which one is performing better, and it'll slide all the ad dollars onto that. But if you're only using one piece of creative, going back to these analogies, that's like putting out a red velvet cupcake and only one type of cupcake. But you might be serving this to an audience of people who are allergic to cream cheese icing. So
Oh,
you might it might you might have been better off to have a variety, so that of these different types of ads or different pieces of content, you're appealing to different people in a different way. But if you just put all of your effort into that one single ad that you think as an advertiser is going to be the right piece of content, you're selling yourself short. Yes, you're probably still going to hit the mark with some people. Yes, it'll be successful to a degree, but if you really want to level yourself up faster, then you need a variety of ad creative for every single campaign that you're testing, and test and pay attention to the numbers, and then toggle on and off the things that are or not working. And I feel like that's the other area where a lot of advertisers, I don't want to say they really missed the mark, but if they're trying to move themselves forward, it's going to be a lot slower if they're just doing one piece of ad creative at a time.
I mean, that makes complete sense. I just, my brain's kind of shooting off. Like, we're getting nerdy here, which I'm actually really excited about. Because, like, I've worked with some very, very smart Facebook ads managers in the past. Certainly when I was like working internally with some clients, or some employers, I should say. Um, there's some strong opinions. Like, there's some people who are like, F dynamic ads. Absolutely not. We do not let Facebook control what is seen and when. And then you have other people like, what? Absolutely. Wait, why? Why would just let them do the work? Just give them 5, 6 pieces of creative and 6 different captions, and let them figure out which is the best combination depending on who it's being served to. How much do you play ball with Facebook? It's so funny. We talk about it like it's a real person. We bitch about it like it's a real person. It's like it's this being that doesn't actually exist, but we all like wrestle with it. And like, how much do you let it do what it does versus how much do you go, no, I'm driving? I'm very curious on this.
First of all, I love that you put it in that context, because it's rare that I ever get to speak to somebody who understands it in that way or feels it in that way, where, most people I work with are small business owners who are eyes wide open and say, I don't know what I'm doing and I need help. And I understand the platform. I can connect the dots. I can help them. But to speak with other marketers who know how to drive the platform and know when it's going off the rails and not doing what they want it to do. Yeah. So how much do we let Meta take over versus how much do we wrangle back that control? It's been a delicate balance lately, I will say, because of Meta's Advantage Plus suite of tools, meaning anything Advantage Plus is Meta's AI, and that's driving in the background, trying to take over a lot of the decision making that us advertisers would typically make. And that comes with Advantage Plus Creative, Advantage Plus Targeting, Advantage Plus Budget, which used to be CBO, Campaign Budget Optimization, Advantage Plus, there's Advantage Plus Shopping. There's a whole suite of Advantage Plus. But this has been rolling out with a lot more force over the last year. And for the average
everybody in AI.
Yeah, for the average advertiser who doesn't know what they're doing and is trying to make Meta's tools work for them, it's wonderful. Especially on the shopping side, it's wonderful. But for those of us advertisers who have been doing this for a long time and have specific goals that we are trying to achieve, and we know how to, I don't want to say manipulate the system, but we know how to work the system in our favor, the advantage targeting in particular is just coming in like a bull in a china shop and just wrecking everything. It's frustrating because Advantage Plus placements, that's the other one as well. So what I'm finding is that when I first launch a campaign, I babysit it very heavily in the first 24 hours, because that's when I'm going to know if I leave everything on Advantage Plus and automatic, is Meta going to play nice with it? Is it going where we want it to go? And if that's the case, absolutely wonderful. The best case scenario is to let Meta use their tools and amplify in the best way that they know how. But if I babysit that campaign and look at my placements and realize all of my placements are getting shoved into Marketplace and that's not working for me, or they want to keep putting everything into the video feeds and I'm not getting any circulation into the news feeds or stories or reels, or the other one is the ads on Facebook Reels. That's not an ad in a Facebook reel. That's like a little postage stamp being slapped on top of somebody else's reel with barely any text. It's ineffective at the moment. So these things are definitely things that I wrestle the system with. And it feels like every time if I want something specific, for example, I'm based in Canada and most of the clients I work with are in the United States. So sometimes if we want to target both Canada and the United States, I have to make sure we separate those out into separate campaigns.
Sure.
Because all of that budget is going to go to Canada, not the United States, because it's cheaper to reach Canada, more competitive to reach the United States. So if 95% of the business that I'm working within is in the United States and 5% is Canada, I want to make sure that my budgets are mirroring that.
Totally.
And then same with Advantage Plus targeting. If I have a specific group of people that I need to reach with my ads, or say I'm doing retargeting, and then every time you make a little campaign tweak or change, it's like, oh, hey, we automatically added on Advantage Plus targeting for you. We're doing you a favor. I'm like, no. So it's just having to watch it like a hawk to make sure that the settings are maintaining the way that we want it to go, and that especially when you've been doing this, I've been doing this for a decade, and you build habits when it comes to using Ads Manager and creating ads, and those habits they're hard to change. And so my habits are, I'm finding that if I'm working too quickly on ads, that I'm not double checking any settings that have changed and reset at the ad set level, and all of a sudden that Advantage Plus targeting has snuck back in again. So it's all in change. Like we were mentioning at the beginning, it is that platform changes daily. Trying to keep up with those changes is difficult for the average business, but it definitely keeps it interesting for someone who works in the platform every day.
Well, this is what's interesting, and I want to ask you a personal question next. It's I love hiring experienced marketers because you're not just paying for their hour, you're paying for 10 years of their time mastering a thing. With it, however, though, because I have hired and employed many, I mean, at this point, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of marketers, all of my different 17 years of doing this. Sometimes when I'm hiring these like uber experienced humans, what I think people forget is that marketers are very creative, and we are, we are these little creative creatures, but creative creatures get bored. And so even though on your resume, it's a decade doing this thing, and I'm paying for a decade of your experience, which I'm really excited about, it doesn't inherently mean that I'm hiring somebody who currently still has a passion for that thing.
Yes.
How do you maintain not just clearly your pencil is sharpened, like we're on it, but how do you maintain a passion behind what you've done for so long?
This is going to be a very interesting answer, but it's by carefully picking and choosing who I work with. Because when I wake up in the morning, I work for myself, and I've been doing that for a long time. And so when I wake up in the morning and I hit the keyboard and I'm talking with all of these different humans, clients, members, different people that I interact with, these are who I consider my coworkers. These are the people that I'm choosing to interact with every day. And if you show up to work happy and you like who you are interacting with, then you're going to be a happier human being. And I've had times where, I show up and the client situation is very tense or difficult or stressful. And sometimes that's just learning. You have to learn your way through these scenarios and situations. But as you get more years under your belt, you're right, it can get old and it can get exhausting and it can get tiring. And then these platform changes can get infuriating. And sometimes there are things that happen that are of no fault of your own. It's just the changes in the algorithms and changes in the system and changes in the market. And your clients are looking to you for, why aren't we getting those results we used to get? And it can get very frustrating. So those are the exceptions. There are going to be times where, there are going to be times where you're doing things you don't love, but we got to do them anyway. But what keeps me coming back and keeps me passionate is the people that I work with. And the majority of my clientele are small business owners who are spending money out of their own pockets on their advertising dollars and just trying to make it work. And those are the people that I love to support, because I know that I have information that I show up, I can help them. I can help make their lives better. And I've done that with hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of business owners all across the entire globe. And that's what that's where I'm motivated. That's what makes me tick and what makes me happy. So even though there might be speed bumps along the way where things get frustrating, I wake up as a happy person and I love what I get to do. And I love that I'm also in control of that, in the sense of, if all of a sudden I'm not enjoying myself, I can change it. And what I've noticed over the years is that I can change it if I want to walk away. Like, I've tried to walk away from the real estate industry. That's my dominant niche for supporting advertising. I've tried to walk away from the real estate industry a few times. It's like a boomerang. It just keeps coming back. It just keeps sucking me back in. But at the end of the day, I realize it's not the real estate industry that I don't like. I actually do like it. And I actually do love what I've been able to do with it. But it's a very aggressive industry that can burn you out really quick. So I've had to learn how to navigate clients very carefully in that industry, and just make sure, like, double check myself. Am I waking up happy? Am I waking up happy to do what I'm doing? And if the answer is no, then I change it very quickly. And that's kind of what keeps the passion going strong.
That's cool. That's
I have
a good, I mean, it's an
relationship
honest
with my
answer.
business, but not with people. I'm kidding.
When I train my marketers on how to be rainmakers, one of the things that I'll teach them is like the constellations of how to know whether it's time to stay or to go. And if I reflect back at my career, it's always come down to the same three. Do I enjoy what I do if I talk to nobody? Do I enjoy who I work with, even if I don't enjoy what I do? And do I get compensated enough to care for myself and those I love? If any one of those three is in jeopardy, we have a problem. We have a flight risk. And so the fact that your answer is like, yeah, I can still have a passion for what I do if I spoke to nobody, but it's who I speak to that really dictates whether or not I enjoy what I do after 10 years of doing it. I find that to be my number one thing as well. Like, I could get paid buckets of money and I can really enjoy the task at hand. But if I lose respect for the client or the employer, I'm pretty much out within like days, weeks. Like, it's really difficult for me to get back on the horse when a relationship has crumbled because of a break in morality, ethics, values of something significant. Where I know other people who work with people that have done terrible things and like they're still there and they can separate art from artist. I think I can't. I think for me, it's like if I'm working for somebody who, despite their brilliance on social media, if I know behind the scenes that they're not a good person, I can't stand behind the art, especially in a marketing capacity, because then I just feel like a fraud. So I hear what you're saying and I completely validate. I have a question for you next. This is something it's really interesting because you brought it up earlier about buy this, buy this, buy this. So I have a book coming out. I don't know when our podcast will drop, but the book is coming out January 21st, 2025. And it's all about identity marketing, which is thank you. It's a new call to action in the sense of like, stop inviting your prospective customers to buy this, invite them to be this. And so it's not about your brand identity and your colors and your typography, because that's fun. It's really about their sense of who they are on the inside, how they self-identify, what they want to be called. And you see it all the time. Like, we see the Swifties, we see Harley Hogs. We have some really cool small business examples in the book. But then when I go back to paid advertising as a medium, how do I install that concept? Because I think most call to actions in paid is like buy, 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 or some version of like urgency or scarcity oriented call to actions. I would love to have call to actions that are identity based, be this, an invitation to become this. But I don't also want to be overly clever in my marketing that I'm not clear enough to like make sense. Have you ever played with those styles of ads before?
If I'm being honest, it truly depends on the nature of the client. Meaning, some industries, the more we try to adopt a persona in certain industries, for example, healthcare, fitness, supplements, any of those industries, we have to tread very, very carefully, because as soon as you start inserting the word you into your advertising, then you're assuming the ads come across as though you're assuming you know something about that person. And so, for example, if you want to make your workouts better, well, that phrase assumes that the person we're talking to is working out. And then, well, how do we know that person is working out? Is my advertising listening to me? And that's when, when we use that in the form of looking at, say, people who have an depression or an autoimmune disorder. If you say, is your depression getting you down? Well, that's assuming that we know that somebody has depression. So we have to really back it off and just use very generic, very, very generic, wide open. People who have had depression have felt success with these programs. We have to just make it very wide open rather than really connecting with that person. But as far as businesses go outside of those industries, you really, the best way of doing it is showing up and being helpful, educational, or entertaining. So if you keep showing up in their feed and you're providing some kind of value, and that value doesn't have to result in a sale, then that's how you are able to convert people from fans and followers into eventual customers. But if you skip that fans and followers stage and you just try and go straight to a sale, then you're not really building up that group of people who really believe in you. You're just kind of going straight into, hey, let's buy this. And again, it really does depend on the industry, because when we're talking about, if we're talking about a business who is selling t-shirts, and I use this example a lot as well. If you're selling t-shirts, people understand what a t-shirt is. They understand how t-shirt sizing works. They understand the quality of different t-shirt fabrics. So if you show up to a cold audience of people who don't know you, you put a t-shirt in front of them. If it's got a cute, funny, funky something on the front that really resonates with me, cool, I will buy it. If it doesn't, I move on. So in that case, yes, you can show up and make sales on the spot. People understand it. But if you are a coach or a service provider or someone who has a product that you need to educate your consumers first, you can't just show up on scene and ask for a sale right away. Or you can't just show up on scene and ask for a click to your landing page, or show up and ask for a lead so we can harass you and hound you by phoning your phone number and following up your email with 3 to 4 emails before hey, I noticed that you haven't been responding to my emails. So it does kind of, the nature of the product or the program or the service does kind of dictate which level of advertising you can kind of skip across. But for the most part, you really do have to stay at that top of funnel stage for a lot longer than I think most marketers are willing to.
Well, I think that's certainly what we saw in 2024. I think the buyer's cycle or length of purchase lengthened. People were not buying quickly like they used to. I think there was more pause of like, well, I've already bought a course, I never finished it, or I already bought something similar. Like there was more discernment, there was more distrust, there was more skepticism. And that's only going to increase, honestly, as we go. So I think you're investing more in a relationship than a transaction, which is what I'm all about as well. Yeah. And so relationships take time. Like they just, unless it's like a hit it and quit at Vegas, but like for the most part, the relationships that you want to like have until you're in your rocking chair, they just take time. And so, okay, well, we do this fun thing on the podcast where we leave the last question for the guest to ask. So you are now the host. What question would you like to ask?
Oh dear. You're an extremely experienced marketer. You said you have 17 years in the industry. If you could give advice to yourself at the 10-year mark, what advice would you have given to yourself?
Yeah, because I'm hitting 18, so 10. Well, it's funny because like the first, chapter of my career, it was like do as you're told and do it well and do it better than somebody else who's being told or doing what they've been told. So like it was just, I mean, you don't even have a sense of self yet. You're just like absorbing, learning, amassing as much skill as possible. Then with so many years into it, you start to get a sense of like, I don't like this, or I do like this, or you know what I mean? Now I have enough experience to know the difference between like pleasure and pain and good and joy and, so like when you're first starting out, like you don't realize the job that you have is great until you go to a shittier job. You're like, dang it, I really should have appreciated that. That happened to me. I worked at ancestry.com and it was like my first job out of school, and I complained about stupid stuff, and then the next job was so horrendous. I'm like, damn it, I really should have appreciated that way more. So you just don't know. But you know, when you're 10 years into your career, now you have enough contrast to know the difference. I think if I'm being honest, not that I have regrets in life because everything happens as it should, but man, I wish I would have just put more chips on myself. Like I wish I would have bet on my own business endeavors or my own personal brand or my own independence professionally sooner rather than later. I think COVID was really scary for me. It was for a lot of us. And so even though I went out on my own, I went right back to working for two people back to back during the COVID era. And those were hard. I shouldn't have done it. But when, you know, your stages dry up overnight, like revenue, it became really scarce and really scary. So if I could go back, knowing how many people took off during the COVID season, while people like they tripled down on their personal brand and tripled down on online education and like offering when everybody had this government money hanging around, I didn't do that. I got scared and went back to work for somebody, and I regret it. Right now, the positive is because I did that, I gained team members that I have today, years later. So I would do it all over again just for the team that I have right now. But I wish I would have been a little bit more ballsy, a little bit more gutsy on betting on myself more aggressively, more unapologetically, in spite of the revenue justifications.
This is giving me some inspiration because I have sort of really shifted, I'd say I guess since the pandemic, I've really, really shifted within myself to take pretty big risks with my business.
Yep.
And I'll spend money in ways that are every dollar I spend is basically to keep the business growing. And it's like an addiction. It is like a giant slot machine. I'm like, okay. But if I just sink this much into this area, then how much further can it get me with clients and members? And it's been, some of the risks have really paid off. Other risks have burned a little hard, but I feel like I'm playing in a much bigger arena with bigger risks, but I feel like my risk tolerance has grown so much from all of I call them entrepreneur scars. All of the scars over the years of mistakes made and challenges and issues and, you know, waking up stressed to the max with client work and people. I feel like I've been through it to the point where I'm like, all right, what else are you going to throw at me? What else you got?
Yeah.
And if that's what we got, fine. I am willing to play this game at a much higher level with bigger risks if that's how it's going to be. And it's been very freeing in the sense of I own my mistakes and I make them, but I'm not blaming anybody else for it. I'm not looking at anyone else saying, you know, I wish somebody had taught me better in business. No, I'm out here living my best life. I have pretty amazing experiences. I get to do a ton of travel and I get to live the life that I want, which involves a lot of camping and road tripping and going from, you know, big stages with hundreds of people to sitting, you know, oceanside watching whales. Like I've built this world, I've built this life, and I've built it very authentically, but I also recognize that the risk tolerance involved is not what other people could tolerate. And so it's definitely not for everybody. And entrepreneuring it's not easy. And hearing you talk about having a previous, like going back to previous employers or having jobs, I used to work in the corporate world way, way, way back. And I did have it good. I worked for a really amazing company and I worked in their marketing department and it was great, but it was very much the corporate grind and then the 9 to 5. And that was just not for me. And it wasn't until I quit that and got freed from that where myself as a human started coming together and really finding myself in life. But there are definitely moments in my current day-to-day life with all these entrepreneur scars that make me look back on that cushy little office job where if I had stuck with it, I would have been, you know, right up through the ranks. I would have a massive salary. I would have been completely set financially.
I think about that too. Yeah.
But I also think I would have been a miserable human being. So
that's what I'm like. Had I stayed the course in corporate, I would be like the head of marketing of, I don't know, Netflix or Mattel or something cool, you know, but then also what cost to my soul or what cost to my creativity and artistry and to what, you know, because all the stuff that you learn as an entrepreneur can't be learned anywhere else. It's just a fact. It's like, you know, period.
Well, because it's learning about yourself. When you become an entrepreneur, there is no one else to blame when something doesn't go right. And so it makes you go, oh, maybe I'm not good at accounting and and all of these pieces, but you somehow have to patchwork it together and you learn a lot about yourself real quick.
Totally. Amanda, you're a joy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful that Jen connected us. I'm so grateful that you got to come on the Remaker podcast and tell your story and advise us in the future on just, I think, again, shifting our perspective, the paradigm around advertising and really its role as amplification more than anything else. And I really appreciate this dialogue. So thank you so much for being on today's Rainmaker podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an absolute pleasure. This was a joy. And I hope that we can stay connected going forward.
Thanks for listening today. If you've loved what you heard, make sure to rate the show, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us get the Rainmaker podcast in front of more passionate marketers just like you. And if you're ready to transform your marketing from buy this to be this, pick up my new identity marketing book available on my website at veronicaromney.com. Until next time, my friends, keep making it rain.